The deaths of two young men in Kenya during anti-government protests have sparked accusations that police misinterpreted their causes of death, with officials allegedly covering up killings linked to the unrest. 19-year-old Charles Owino was shot in the head during the July protests near Nairobi last year, but authorities recorded his death as a road accident according to his family and morgue records. Similarly, 21-year-old Shaquille Obienge, also killed during the protests, was said to have died in a road accident by police despite an autopsy revealing he was shot in the neck. Both deaths were part of a wave of violence that swept through the country as thousands of young Kenyans protested against tax hikes and political corruption. The autopsies on Owino, Obienge and two other men revealed sharp discrepancies between the causes of death listed in police records and the findings of public pathologists. In Owino's case, his brother was shown the morgue logbook, which listed his cause of death as a road accident, though the post-mortem showed a gunshot wound. Obienge's father faced similar contradictions when he identified his son's body, later learning through an autopsy that Shaquille had been shot at close range. Police officers who spoke to Reuters anonymously said authorities often mischaracterize deaths caused by police as accidents, mob justice, or drownings in an attempt to conceal the true nature of the violence. Reuters spoke with several relatives who described how morgue records and police statements diverged sharply from the autopsy results. The deaths of Owino and Obienge were not isolated incidents. Several other protest-related deaths have raised alarms, with some family members alleging that police were responsible for killings disguised as accidents. Kefer Odivor Oema, for instance, was reportedly picked up by the police during a protest and later found dead, with police attributing his death to mob justice. Oyuma's family contested the claim, alleging that he had been severely beaten up by officers. Another young protester, Denzel Omondi, was discovered drowned after going missing for several days, though his autopsy suggested prior injuries.
He went to the parliament during demonstrations, and he was one of the Gen Zs who went there following the video which came up on the social media. And after that, the boy went missing.
Kenya's National Police Service has remained largely silent on specific cases, and government representatives have not responded to multiple requests for comment. The government's response to the protests has been sharply criticized by human rights organizations. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have raised concerns about the large number of enforced disappearances and police killings, claiming that the authorities are engaged in a cover-up.
It is required by law that where we are implicated as police, we don't investigate ourselves. It has to be done by an independent oversight authority. In this case, we can either have the Internal Affairs Unit, which is within the police, or the oversight authority, which is the IPOA. So it's not a yes or no answer.
During the protests, which began in late June, young people flooded the streets to demand changes in government policies, particularly in response to rising taxes. The authorities' violent crackdown on the demonstrators, including reports of live rounds being fired, led to at least 42 deaths, according to Deputy President Kithure Kindiki. Rights groups allege that many of these deaths were a result of extrajudicial killings by the police. The National Commission on Human Rights recorded a staggering 82 cases of enforced disappearances between June and December, which is a significant rise from just 9 cases in the 18 months prior. According to Reuters sources, a secretive unit within Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations, known as the Operation Action Team, may have been involved in the violent repression of protesters. While the police have denied involvement, numerous families continue to report cases of abduction and unexplained detentions tied to the protests.
What we are seeing are people in plain clothes hiding their faces, basically covering their faces. They abduct people in a very violent, very threatening or scary way, and then they don't even take them to police stations. So in the first place, those things should not be happening. But because it has happened, we need accountability.
Despite multiple allegations of police brutality, there has been little accountability. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, responsible for investigating claims of police misconduct, has confirmed receiving complaints, but the results of its investigations remain unclear. In December, President William Ruto acknowledged instances of excessive and extrajudicial actions by the security services, but has yet to take substantial action.
During these 30 days, I was only fed once a day, a very small meal of ugali, that is corn, and cabbage, and a cup of tea in the morning. Okay. I was allowed to take a shower once a week, every 7 days, but my handcuffs remained intact both day and night.
The Nairobi morgue, which is the city's busiest public morgue, serves as a grim reflection of the police's role in covering up protester deaths. Between June and September, police attributed 94 deaths to mob justice and drownings, which is a marked increase from the previous year. The morgue received nearly 700 bodies during this period, many of which were associated with police actions, yet only 9 were recorded as gunshot fatalities, raising further suspicions about the manipulation of records. In the face of growing evidence of state violence, the families of the deceased have called for justice. The relatives of Owino, Obienge and other victims of police violence have struggled to reconcile the official records with the truth of what happened. Many are demanding investigations not only into the killings but also into the widespread allegations of abductions and forced disappearances. Kenya's protest movement, dubbed as the Gen Z protests due to its predominantly youthful demographic, has drawn the attention of international human rights organizations and spurred a debate over the government's handling of dissent. While Kenya's leaders have expressed concern over the loss of life, the underlying issue remains. Will the deaths of these young Kenyans be covered up, or will their families ever receive justice?